Hello, this is Bentvnewsround News Roundup, a compilation of major stories. The weekend in. Thank you for being part of the program. I am Tunde Alabi. Election observers from the Commonwealth have condemned the Zimbabwean army's deadly use of force to break up protests in Harare by opposition supporters who have claimed that the presidential election was rigged. Britain and the United Nations have called for restraint in the use of force in the ongoing post-election protests that have led to the death of at least 3 people.
The government has invoked Section 37(1) of the Public Order and Security Act, Chapter 11(17), which authorizes the incorporation of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces into the law enforcement agency role of maintaining law and order, strictly under the command of the police. Our security forces, therefore, remain deployed across the country to maintain law and order.
Meanwhile, Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa has said he had been talking to opposition leader Nelson Chamisa in order to bring the violence to an end.
Zimbabwe is living through the outcome of the most important election in decades. Results from Monday's presidential contest have yet to be released, though opposition leader Nelson Chamisa claims to have beaten President Emmerson Mnangagwa. Protesters did not give their names, but had plenty to say.
You see, they're using military. How can a general be a president? I'm not going to vote for that government. It's full of military personnel.
Army vehicles rolled down the streets in the afternoon and live gunfire echoed throughout the city. Observers aired their concerns with the EU and American observer missions, noting that the longer the results take, the more tense this nation will be.
I think there is growing frustration since the election day, which was largely peaceful and orderly, about the slowness with which the Zimbabwe Election Commission is producing results. The longer it takes for the Election Commission to produce those results, the greater the level of frustration and the greater the level of concern that the ZEC is not doing a neutral and impartial job.
U.S. Congresswoman Karen Bass cautioned that the election could have consequences.
Shortly before coming here, we passed out of the House of Representatives a resolution really calling on the Zimbabwean people to have a peaceful, transparent, and fair election, and raising the possibility of evaluating U.S. policy. So that hangs in the air, and I hope that that is taken into consideration as the Zimbabwean people go through this process.
But as the sun sets on an uneasy Harare, with soldiers patrolling the tense streets, much more than that is up in the air.
Incidents of wanton violence and hooliganism, which broke out this afternoon in the capital, come as a complete surprise. We hold the opposition MDC alliance and its whole leadership responsible for this disturbance of national peace, which was meant to disrupt the electoral process. Equally, we hold the party and its leadership responsible for any loss of life, injury, or damage to property that arise from these acts of political violence, which they aided and abated. The alliance and its leadership has forthwith to remove its violent supporters from the streets so peace returns to our country.
Also, Zimbabwe youth have commented on the election, the use of force, and the new Zimbabwe post-Robert Mugabe.
Been very nice to see women participating and young people taking up the mantle to participate, to lead. We had a huge number of young people that put their names forward as candidates for a lot of posts. Whether they will win or not is another issue, but that's one of the things that I actually believe will lead Zimbabwe to success. The fact that young people are beginning to get engaged in issues of politics, economics,
I think right now what Zimbabwe needs as a country is capacity building. You see, we have so many youths who have so much potential in their various areas of calling, but what has been lacking has been the potential for them to showcase their talent, especially to the outside world. So right now I think Zimbabwe has gotten to a point where people no longer necessarily rely on whoever is governing the country, but they actually rely on what they have within themselves.
Look at Zimbabwe, we have the 5th largest lithium deposit in the world. When you look at gold production per kilometer, we are in the top 5. But people are afraid because of what has happened in the past. So I believe that the future of Zimbabwe lies on us making economic policies that will assure the rest of the world that it's safe to come to Zimbabwe.
Regardless of who wins, the task for them is to concentrate on rebuilding the institutions, creating stronger regulations, increasing service delivery. And I think the most important thing is cultivating a culture of constitutionalism. We have a new constitution, well, a relatively new constitution, but we don't use it. So there's a difference between having a constitution that is present and actually using it. And if we don't develop a culture of constitutionalism, we will complain about the same problems over and over again as if we don't have the laws to ensure that people are protected.
They shot him here, then everything comes from the front. And it was a sad situation. And we couldn't help him because there was no transport, no one. Everyone was running away from the army, you know.
When we are civilians, we don't have guns.
We don't have guns. Why are they killing us? What did we do? We didn't do anything. All we want is that Mr. Mnangagwa, we deal with the constitution. You don't use guns. Don't direct politics with guns. Please, please, we're begging you. Let's go under constitution. We are civilians. We are fighting for our rights. We need our rights. We don't need Mexico. No, we don't need SADC. We need European Union and United Nations to sit down, talk, solve this mess. I want our rights to be.
Residents of communities affected by Boko Haram attacks have spoken against a lackluster attitude of Nigerian government in helping displaced people who have returned to their communities to reintegrate and move on with their lives.
These days, teachers meet under trees in open fields so they can stay alert and run in case of an attack. The terrorist group Boko Haram is still an ever-present danger.
I was here in the town when they have come. So when they arrived, I was living with my mom and my dad at our environment. So we just hear a gunshot and we start running.
They eventually returned home here to Lassa, a historic town in the southern part of Borno State where signs of Boko Haram attacks are still visible. The teachers survey an aging school building. Maimuna Zubairu, who lost 3 of her uncles and her older brother, feels that the government has abandoned Lassa.
They're not doing much help. We here towards the villages, they don't take much action. Maybe because most of the people around here are Christian.
That's why Rebecca Gadzama and her husband co-founded a school and brought these teachers to help staff it. Their goal is to bring a quality education to an area where Boko Haram has virtually destroyed most government schools. It's part of their Education Must Continue initiative.
We are just private individuals, we're just good citizens, maybe good citizens or natives of this area. So we thought that we couldn't take them to start school in the government school because we were not sure when the government would start their school. So we just found this place.
Much of the government's financial support goes to the state capital, Maiduguri, more than 200 kilometers north of Lassa. This new housing complex in the Maiduguri area includes 200 new units. The mostly private-funded venture was commissioned for Boko Haram victims.
We hear about what is happening in northern Borno. Buildings are made, people are asked to go, and they are allocated to people. It doesn't look like there is government relevant presence in the situation, in the rebuilding of this area.
Most of the kids at Rebecca's second school in the city of Yola are Christians from the area. She comes back to check on the students, many of whom are traumatized by what they have seen.
area of mass is this?
Ibrahim Daniel and Chinda John say they want to be soldiers to get revenge on Boko Haram.
I like them to be a soldier because of anything that them do. I like to do for them. If me see him, me I go carry him outside. Me I go kill him. Me I go kill him.
The kids even play war games, with one side pretending to be soldiers and the other Boko Haram. Rebecca's hoping the school library will help heal the students' trauma. But having fun is also part of the healing process. Rebecca hopes to build more schools for kids to play, make friends, and learn skills to help them have a better future.
Local contractors in Uganda have criticized the Ugandan government for patronizing Chinese construction firms at the expense of local contractors. They accused the government of killing local contractors while empowering Chinese firms with no long-term benefit to the people of Uganda. Meanwhile, China has loaned Uganda hundreds of millions of dollars in recent years to build new roads.
Uganda's lack of large construction companies has left road construction to multinational companies, especially from China. One of the largest projects by the Chinese communications construction company is the 51-kilometer expressway from Entebbe Airport to Kampala. But at a cost of $450 million, almost triple Uganda's entire road construction budget, some question why the work was not given to a local company.
Most of these corporations owned by Chinese in Uganda are partially owned by the government of China. But which company in Uganda is being owned by government of Uganda and Ugandans? It's not there. So we're saying we need to allow room to grow these local companies by giving them the opportunity.
Ugandan contractors in 2017 lobbied to get 30% of high-value construction reserved for local firms. But earlier this year, the Public Procurement Authority and Ministry of Finance repealed the regulation. Authorities argue local contractors struggle too much with finances, equipment, and adequate experience for big projects.
And the Chinese companies have come out to offer relatively cheaper options, and yet they do good work as well. So it's not that the country is giving work specifically to Chinese, but it has to do with their rates as well.
To finance the Entebbe Express Highway, China Exim Bank extended 20% of the funding as a loan to Uganda. Owing money to China could become a problem, says the Uganda Debt Network's Kapwepwe Julius Mshambi.
The Chinese, for heaven's sake, are not here for charity across Africa, and therefore that must be at the heart of every African, and also that our own development as Africans, it is mainly us as Africans that can be able to take lead and take charge rather than simply run someone else's money.
Local contractors argue the government needs to finally pass and implement a 2005 bill designed to support the Uganda construction industry. The bill, among other things, calls for government to help improve the capabilities of Ugandan contractors by requiring multinationals to transfer knowledge to local companies.
U.S. President Donald Trump has stated his readiness to meet with Iran's leader without preconditions at any time they want. However, at a news conference, he stated that Iran's regime must never be allowed to acquire nuclear weapons.
Iran was addressed at Trump's joint press conference with visiting Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte.
The Prime Minister and I also agree that the brutal regime in Iran must never be allowed to possess a nuclear weapon. Never. We encourage all nations to pressure Iran to end the full range of its malign activities. The United States welcomes the partnership of Italy in these vital efforts.
But asked if he was willing to meet with Iranian President Hassan Rouhani, Trump said he would meet with the Iranians anytime they want to meet, with no preconditions. He said meetings are useful in diffusing potentially dangerous tensions, and that his recent meetings with Russian and North Korean leaders were a good example.
I would certainly meet with Iran if they wanted to meet. I don't know that they're ready yet. They're having a hard time right now. But I ended the Iran deal. It was a ridiculous deal. I do believe that they will probably end up wanting to meet.
Officials in Tehran have ruled out any talks with Washington, saying the United States has shown it is not reliable. The United States and Iran have been at odds since the clerics took power in Tehran in 1979. Trump fueled renewed anger in Iran in May when he pulled the United States from the nuclear deal reached in 2015 between Iran and 6 world powers. He is calling for a much tougher deal that would control Iran's behavior in the region, as well as the dismantling of its nuclear program. The Iranian president warned that Trump's policies could lead to the mother of all wars, provoking a furious response from Trump. But a top Iranian general said Thursday his forces are ready to meet any challenge from Trump.
Hereby I tell you, the gambling Mr. Trump, be aware that we are near you where you do not even imagine.
For now, Iran has more reason to worry about U.S. economic sanctions than its military power. Sanctions are forcing some foreign businesses to withdraw from Iran, which could seriously undermine its economy.
Finally, scientists have begun training a special group of Australian dogs as conservation detection dogs in order to sniff out threatened species. The scientists are training the dogs to use their sensitive noses and ears in the new mission.
Rubble and Uda are working border collies, but they aren't herding dogs.
Good boy.
They're conservation detection dogs, trained to sniff out elusive and threatened species.
We know that border collies are really good at both searching and their stamina. That's what we're after for a working dog, is their stamina, both mentally and physically.
They were recently given their toughest assignment so far, finding the critically endangered bawbaw frog, which is being wiped out by a deadly fungus. The dogs are trained to drop and indicate with their nose when they find the smell they're looking for.
Going out to the sites at Mount Bawbaw is probably one of the hardest areas I've had to search in. Just to get out to the site, we're trekking through alpine forest.
Scientists say the bawbaw frog could go extinct in 5 to 10 years. So Zoos Victoria, a zoo-based conservation organization, is running a captive breeding program in this specially refrigerated bunker.
This species is incredibly difficult to detect in the wild. They live predominantly underground, or at least under substrate.
But Rubble and Uda had no trouble finding them.
The dogs were able to locate the exact site where the frogs were calling from much, much quicker than what we could do just by using ears.
Zoos Victoria is now considering using trained dogs to find other endangered species.
Particularly for those cryptic and low-density species, we think detection dogs might have a really important role to play. In fact, that could be their niche.
Luckily, there are new dogs coming up through the ranks, such as Oakley.
He's only a puppy, or what we call now a whuppie, a whopping big puppy. And he is just kind of living life at the moment, learning the basics, so obedience and recalls.
Oakley is due to start work as a conservation detection dog later this year.
We just like border collies. We like their work ethic, we like the fact they can go all day, and we also like the fact that they love to cuddle up at night on the couch.
And if they're dreaming about frogs, all the better.
With that report, we conclude the news roundup for this week. Thank you for being part of the program. I am Tunde Alabi. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye. Regardless resident status abroad, living outside the shores of one's homeland can really be challenging and sometimes very difficult. Let's be sincere, to keep pace with happenings from the host country abroad can really be difficult. Here on Dialogue in Diaspora, we give you every information, every news, every current issue you need to know on happenings outside the UK. Dialogue in Diaspora is your link between the world and the United Kingdom. It's your window to African development. Here, live on Bentvnewsround.